Hi guys, thanks for tuning again. This is the second of 3 Facebook Lives coming to you from the MSPCA-Angell in Boston on Giving Day. This is a day when we are celebrating everything we do for animals, from taking care of thousands and thousands of animals in Angell Animal Medical Center. You heard from Dr. Kiko Bracker earlier with a preview of our new critical care unit. We're going to be hearing from Mike Keiley, our Director of Adoption Centers and Programs, shortly. He's got a really cute 4-legged friend to introduce you to. You're not going to want to miss that. And then make sure you tune in again at 5 o'clock this afternoon. We'll hear from Dr. Terry Bright in Behavior to answer some of your behavior-related questions. But for now, on Giving Day, we've got so much to update you on, from the many thousands of animals that we're transporting and finding new homes for, to the millions of pet meals we provided to people in our communities who need them to keep their pets safe and healthy, to so many more animal protection services that we offer that make a huge, huge difference. And if you want to know more about that specifically, just tune to mspcagivingday.org. We'll drop that downstairs in the comments. And without further ado, let's talk to Mike Keiley, who's going to give an update on all of the animal protection services here at the MSPCA, and first maybe introduce us to this wonderful 4-legged friend.
Well, thanks, Rob. I am here with my cool feline friend Jax, who is available here in the Boston Adoption Center. He's a 1-year-old neutered male, and he came with a friend named Brody, who we'd like to go home with. So if anybody out there is looking for a pair of really cool cats, this is your guy, and so is Brody. Well, I'm excited to talk to you today, and I thought I would just give an overview of some of our programs and then open it up for some questions and answers. So this is the 154th anniversary for the MSPCA, and for me personally, this is my 28th anniversary in the organization, which has been a really long time. But I think despite all the challenges that we've gone through with the pandemic, I feel like we've evolved to a point where we're having the most complete programming that we've ever had in the time that I've been with the organization. And it feels really great to be doing all this incredible work for animals and people in our community, both in Massachusetts and beyond. So I want to take a moment to sort of talk to you a little bit about what that looks like as an overall goals, and then answer some more specific questions that people may have. So let me start by just explaining to you what the Animal Protection Division consists of. It's really sort of 5 main pillars. It's our law enforcement department that investigates neglect and cruelty in Massachusetts, our advocacy department that works in the legislation to help improve the lives of animals and the welfare of animals, our adoption centers where we take in animals and adopt them out to people, as well as our community outreach and our teams that are working outside of our 4 walls to help animals in our community, people in our community, and our community clinics, which are helping people to afford medical care that may be dealing with financial issues. Combined last year, between law enforcement, adoption centers, community outreach, and community clinics, we helped over 40,000 animals directly. And our advocacy teams improved legislation to help thousands of more animals indirectly. So we're really having a major impact, and we're really helping in lots of different ways. And there's really 3 main focal points that I wanted to talk to you about that really is going to inform our goals for the coming years. And that's really out of the concepts of connecting people with pets, which is like a family for Jax and his brother. Keeping families together, because nothing is more important to us than protecting the human-animal bond that already exists, and then protecting animals in our community. We do that with a number of different ways. So in our adoption centers, obviously our main focus is taking in animals that need to come into care, making sure that they have a safe place to land and have all the resources they need to be successful as they move to their journey towards adoption. Now we do that from local intake. We take in animals of all species. So our organization not only helps cats and dogs, like many animal welfare organizations do, but we also help small animals and birds, rabbits, guinea pigs, parakeets, parrots, whatever it may be, and all the other small animals that come through our doors. And we also at Nevins Farm help farm animals that need to be rehomed. Everything from goats to horses to cows and pigs. Pretty much every farm animal that needs a place to go will find a safe place to land at Nevins Farm. And right now we're pretty crowded. We're taking in a lot of animals, both locally and from afar. And our Nevins Farm location is particularly bursting at the seams with animals that need to be placed. We have over 150 farm animals right now that have come to us in various ways through surrender or neglect and investigation from our law enforcement department. And also this year, or this past year, we affiliated with Northeast Animal Shelter, which is the largest relocation center in New England, to help animals come into Massachusetts from other communities that are overwhelmed with the number of animals in their shelters, come to Massachusetts and to find new families. Last year we took in over 4,000 animals from relocation, both to Northeast Animal Shelter as well as our Cape location. And we're really trying to help those communities get to a place where they can be more successful for the animals that are in their community and in need. We're doing that not only from relocation, but also working with those shelters that need some additional resources to be able to help solve the problem that's leading to overpopulation in their community. In the coming months, we'll be announcing some really cool programs that we have in South Carolina to be able to help animals that need extra support and help shelters down there that need some extra support from the MSPCA. Now, preserving families is some of our newer programming that's been out there, and by newer I mean since 2017 when we launched our community outreach programs. And we're in 5 major communities right now, helping on the ground, meeting people in their neighborhoods and identifying what the needs are for those animals. So we started our community outreach programs in Dorchester, and we expanded to Lowell, Lawrence, Hyannis, and now our new community in Lynn that is going to be a focal point out of our Northeast location. This pandemic has been incredibly challenging, and there's been a lot of times in which people's financial issues and access to resources have been really challenging. And a lot of that has been focused around making sure that no animal goes hungry during this pandemic. So our teams last year delivered over 2 million meals to local food pantries, almost 60 food pantries, as well as individuals that were isolated, to make sure every pet had an opportunity to get the nutrition that they needed to stay with their family. We also helped over 2,000 animals directly with additional needs for resources. And our community clinics, which were traditionally our spay, neuter, and shelter clinics, have transformed to be able to help with urgent outpatient care. To make sure that when a family is dealing with an expensive medical issue that they can't afford, that they have access to affordable resources to get the care that they need and to keep their family pet with them. And last year, with that new program that we have at our 3 community clinics at the Cape, Boston, and Methuen, we helped over 10,000 animals get surgeries and medical care that they needed. And that's been really crucial in making sure that we're able to help animals both in our shelters and outside of our 4 walls. And lastly, talking about protecting animals, our law enforcement department are specially commissioned state police officers that investigate neglect and cruelty all throughout Massachusetts. And they have a really challenging job about meeting situations that are in need of help, providing resources where they can to get them back on track, or when the situation is dire for those animals, taking action to remove those animals and get them into care. And that's where our team comes in. Once those animals are taken by law enforcement, either through surrender or through a warrant process, they need to go somewhere. And that's when we open their doors to our adoption centers to receive those animals, give them the medical care and rehabilitation that they need, and then ideally get them into a successful situation where they can have a wonderful home and never really have to worry about whether they're going to be cared for well or not again. So that's a lot of the ways that we're helping animals. Jax is loving this conversation. I hope you guys are too. And I wanted to take a moment to see if there are some questions. So Rob, if there are some questions from the chat, I would love to answer them.
Thanks, Mike. There are some questions, and you just touched on this, and it, I think, underscores the importance of this collaboration between some of our other programs like law enforcement and then what happens in our adoption centers, which many people know as shelters. So specifically, I'm talking about in the last several weeks, we've had so many big surrenders of lots of animals all at once, dozens of chickens from a single property, dozens of cats from a single property, horses, goats, you name it. It feels like that's on the rise. There's been a lot of big surrenders lately. Any idea why that's happening?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily on the rise. I think what's changed a lot is that there's more public attention to these issues. So we are getting people acting in our communities, which we really rely on. Our law enforcement department can't be everywhere all at once. They rely on people identifying a bad situation, recognizing that it needs assistance, and then calling our law enforcement department or their local police department to let them know something's not going well for animals. And then we act upon that. And I think one of the major changes that we made in 2017 with our strategic plan was to become more proactive in our communities addressing issues that are there. So I think that activity change has really happened more as a result of us being more proactive and the community being more proactive in addressing these issues that are affecting animals. So, every time there is a hoarding situation or a situation of neglect, I think sometimes people are surprised that happened in their community. But I think one thing that I've come to realize over my time in the MSPCA is that Hoarding in particular is a mental health issue that needs to be addressed, and it has 100% recidivism, which means that people are going to repeat again if they don't get additional resources for mental health support systems from the human support systems that are out there. So to the best of our ability, when we deal with those situations, we try to make sure that they're connected to the right resources and that they accept those resources so that that doesn't happen again. And I think sometimes people are surprised that it happens in their community because they view their community as really pro-animal supportive. And I think it's just recognized that animal hoarding and animal neglect and even animal cruelty happen in every single community. It's not immune to any geographic boundaries or more affluent communities or less affluent communities. It's something that we're dealing with all throughout every community. So I think the important message here is that if you do see something, you should say something. There's many times in which we've come across a situation that was going on for years and lots of people knew about it, lots of people were concerned about it, but nobody stepped up to address that issue. So if you see that, it's worth the call, and we'll address whether it's something that needs to be addressed criminally or something that maybe there are other resources that we can provide them to get that situation back in order. And that's what we've largely been doing with our community outreach teams and our law enforcement teams, combining efforts to address issues together. That's great.
So COVID, we talk a lot about that here, and we're all very cautiously optimistic, as we know everyone who is watching is too, that the pandemic is on the back foot. And hopefully we've seen the last of this.
Knocking on wood.
Yeah, right, aren't we all? There's been a lot of chatter about the pandemic and pets, with, of course, in the early stages of this pandemic, everybody rushing out to adopt or otherwise acquire a pet. And then a lot of chatter online about whether or not hundreds or thousands of these pandemic pets are now being returned to shelters now that people are going back to work. What does the data say about that, and what's been our experience here in the adoption centers?
The data is saying that that is not an issue. Very loud and clear. The intake numbers and return rates and all those things that everyone predicted would be skyrocketing as a result of people going back to work just is not happening. And I think that's pretty common in animal welfare, in which we expect the worst case scenario and expect the worst of people. But I think in reality, what I've been saying since the beginning of the pandemic is we all know how important animals are to our lives. They enrich our lives, they make our lives better, we rely on them emotionally for support, they rely on us. And I think when people were scared as a whole entire nation all at once, the only time that I remember the situation happened when everybody was vulnerable all at once, it made sense that people wanted to have animals in their lives. And it made an opportunity for people to be able to bring an animal in and have the time to do so. And I never once questioned the intentions of people adopting animals, at the very least, during that time, because I think people respond to our message and they have the right intentions. Now, there are real life situations that might separate people even when they have the right intentions. Maybe it's not the right match. Maybe they didn't anticipate losing their job. Maybe maybe a family member got ill or something else surprising happened. And I think that's when animals and people tend to separate. And then we're called in to help animals get rehomed. But I think what I'm actually seeing now is that people who have been working from home and have invited an animal into their life really value that relationship, and honestly are more willing to change their job than they are willing to surrender their animal. And that's a really powerful thing. I think people want to be home, working from home, they want to be with their pets, they want that relationship to continue, and they're going to preserve that over their workplace responsibilities. And I think that's not what people predicted, but I think that's the reality right now. And time again, we've questioned this. Throughout my career, people question people acquiring animals during Christmas or rabbits at Easter and things along those lines. And we found over and over again that people respond to our message of animals needing home first and foremost, and they're trying to do the right thing. We shouldn't put barriers up for that happening. And in fact, we're going to go in another direction. In April, we're going to be launching a fee-waived adoption event for rabbits, really to push against that expectation that people are going to get rabbits at Easter and then return them or neglect them or worse. What I think we're trying to say as a message is we know that people acquire animals at Easter, rabbits at Easter, and we want them to think about adopting first rather than purchasing one at a pet store and going about it the right way with the right information. And so instead of telling people not to do it, we're saying, if you're going to do it, adopt first, and we're here to help support you.
I love that. Particularly Easter, because we're talking about myth busting, right, to some extent with pandemic pets as a topic, and then also the acquisition or adoption of rabbits and bunnies around Easter. So it's good to know that we're not afraid to talk about that issue and also place rabbits for homes around Easter, knowing that that's the X factor we're not always thinking about, which is, oh, people also fall in love with their pets. We love our pets, right? Yeah. So we change things in our lives to keep our pets happy and to keep our life with our pets consistent. So Mike, we have to ask you this because people are always asking, I'm seeing it on the chat now, you're an expert on all of these lofty animal protection issues, as well as sheltering, but dogs and adoption. People always ask us, I want a particular type of dog. I often see that dog at the MSPCA, but it's for like a hot minute on the website or on our Facebook, and then that dog is adopted. What's the process that people should undertake if they want to find the particular breed of dog they're committed to rescuing from a shelter such as ours? What would you advise them to do?
Adopt a cat. No, just kidding. No, honestly, you know, I think this is sort of a question that comes up throughout every era that we're in is, how do I get the dog that I want? And I think one of the challenges that we experience is that, you know, what we don't experience with cats is that they're all roughly the same size. They're all they're all fur, I should say, and, you know, they're all going to be kind of somewhat equal. And so people actually choose cats more from their personality. And by the way, if you're not paying attention, this cat's pretty much amazing, and I might put him in my pocket on the way out the door. So I think we're seeing that with cat adoption, people are really focused on the personality, but we're seeing with dog adoption is that people have very specific size, hair coat, energy levels, things along those lines that are really specific to them. It might have reminded them of an animal they've had in the past, and that's what people tend to look at first, and less so on personality. I often wish that people would start with personality first, because I think that is what ultimately makes the best match, but recognize that everybody has different needs when it comes to dogs. You know, the challenge is that often what people are looking for are what other people are looking for. So if it is a small, young, well-behaved dog with a hair coat instead of a fur coat, there's probably hundreds of people who are applying for that same animal, and it's really challenging because we can only choose one person, and those animals tend to move really quickly. What we've learned, especially through relocation and from local intake, is that sometimes the dogs that need to come in aren't necessarily going to fit that mold. They're going to be maybe bigger sized dogs or younger dogs that need more behavior support, or certain breeds that people tend to shy away from, like pit bulls or Rottweilers or things along those lines. Our goal in the adoption center is to help the animals that are in need of coming into care, and then doing our very best to match them with the people that are out there looking for a dog. And I think we're going to continue to evolve that process. You know, now that COVID is in a different position and we feel a little bit more safe in our communities, we're going to be looking at combining the things that we've come to value during our appointment-only schedule with the things that we really liked about having open adoption hours, and coming up with a hybrid model that helps people to connect to those animals more quickly and effectively, but also reduces the amount of stress that our dogs have been under when we've had open hours in the past, to help them be as successful as possible while they're in our adoption center.
That's great. So for people looking for a particular type of dog, then, is the website still the first best spot for them to check? MSPCA.org?
Absolutely. Our website certainly is the first place I'd encourage everyone to start at, and right now that's MSPCA.org and NEAS.org, where we are to affiliated organizations. So starting there is a good one, and we often highlight on our social media some of the dogs that need a little extra attention and are looking for those people out there that might be a little harder for them to find. So also people should keep an eye on our Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook accounts for those extra special highlights.
Plus they're just fun. It's just photos of dogs and cats.
Absolutely.
Who doesn't love that?
There's never a time in which it's not great to look at our social media sites.
That's right. So we've got time for one more question, and if people have other questions, you can drop them in the chat. We'll address them after the live ends. Fostering. So we're still getting lots of interest in fostering animals, specifically guinea pigs. Can you talk a little bit about like what currently is our need to grow our foster base, and what particular species are we looking to place into foster homes specifically?
Yeah, we've made a bigger investment in our foster plans for this year. So that means that we've identified specific positions for foster care at each of our locations, so that we can really put some attention to how can we utilize temporary homes to best help animals that are coming into our shelter. I think it's very easy for people to understand that not every animal comes in and does well in this environment. and that there are animals that need more exercise and more attention or training or just need to be out of a stressful place because they're too scared. So we are going to be really investing in acquiring more and more foster homes, but really specific to solving the problems that are keeping animals from getting adopted quickly. So for dogs, that's going to probably be really behavior focused. There's probably, I would say, dogs that are going to be a little too shy and scared in the shelter environment, or might be too rambunctious and need to be in a less stimulus environment. That's going to be our bigger need. Sometimes that's challenging because those dogs may not be able to be in a home with lots of other dogs or young kids or at high activity. So we're going to be looking for people who have a really supportive environment for those particular dogs. Cats, we certainly need, there's a fair amount of young kittens that come in orphaned or even with their moms that need some time to grow in a foster home until they can get adopted, or animals that are dealing with some medical issues that need to be out of this environment to be able to get healthier and then up for adoption. Small animals have become a major challenge for us. Our small animal intake for rabbits and guinea pigs has skyrocketed over the last 3 years, up by almost 40% from 3 years ago. And what we are looking for foster out of that is people who can not only take in guinea pigs and rabbits to foster, but also help to identify potential adopters through their social networks or friend networks or family networks to be able to find additional homes, because we need additional help to get the word out that small animals are needing adoption, and to expand the base of people who are looking for them to a greater audience. So a lot of foster needs for sure, and it'll be specific by species, but we certainly do need them to help as many animals as possible.
That's really helpful. And if anyone wants any more info, you can just navigate to mspca.org. There's a button that says foster. You can click on that and all the information is there. Mike, this is great. Any parting words for people in Facebook land?
I mean, someone come and adopt this cat and his friend, because this cat is the #1 star right now. He's so great. He's just purring away, making muffins. He loves the camera too, so this cat is pretty awesome. So
we'll post a link to his profile in the comments section below.
And the best thing is he's got another friend who's equally great, so you can have 2 amazing cats for one adoption visit.
Amazing. Mike, thanks so much for spending some time with us and answering these questions from viewers. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks, everybody.